Welcome in the run-up on a Friday night, just a little bit later than normal. Thanks for hanging out. Getting ready for Atlanta and Red Bulls tomorrow from the Bins. We'll be taking your questions throughout this. I am flying solo, obviously. John is getting drenched watching high school football and, working and stuff for Georgia Public Broadcasting. Kelly is driving up north on I-85, so she is unavailable. So, hi. I'm Jason. I'm here to talk soccer. Let me know what you're thinking about the match tomorrow. If you have questions tactically, we'll jump into it. You have questions about personnel, we'll jump into it. Lineup questions, we'll jump into it. And anything else on your mind, Atlanta and Red Bulls related. Should be a fun one. I mean, these two teams, it feels like it's always a fun match between these two. These are two teams that have very different styles, very different mentalities, and they match up really, really well. These are two teams that, they talk about it in boxing, you talk about it in pro wrestling. Styles make fights, right? You couldn't ask for two teams that approach the game differently, but in a way that creates a match that kind of has a complementary feel to it, because Red Bulls don't want possession, Atlanta does. Red Bulls want to play long and activate their press by playing long. Atlanta wants to develop plays out of the back, and if they do lose possession, then press when they try to regain possession. They're looking to counter press. So you've got teams that want to do something that the opponent wants to exploit. It's a really fascinating situation. And look, in the regular season, the New York Red Bulls have had the better success here, by far. And it hasn't even really been that close. Games have been close, but the overall success, you're talking about a team in the New York Red Bulls that is 6-1-2 against Atlanta United all time, and that's including the playoffs. Atlanta's never beaten them in the regular season. The only win came in the first leg of the Eastern Conference Finals in 2018. Last time they met, 1-0 win for the Red Bulls. They scored in the fourth minute during the MLS's back tournament. Atlanta could not answer that. Manuel Castro had some great chances in that one, and it just didn't happen for him. Burned with a really good question off the bat, and this is something that Miami did on Wednesday. Are we going to let Red Bulls have the ball? In the past, I would have said no. Tata Martino was very clear in this, in saying we're going to play our game. We're going to play them like we want to play soccer. And when they went to Red Bull Arena, I think back to the game in late 2018 regular season, where Atlanta went there, decided to play its brand of soccer, and Red Bulls were better. They were just better on the day, and they won the match. Red Bulls got away from Red Bulls soccer in that Eastern Conference final, and it cost them. I think Atlanta was also playing in a different way as well, and they were able to adjust quickly. When Red Bulls started to try to play differently, Atlanta adjusted. I would have loved to have seen that series play out if Red Bulls had played their style and Atlanta had played their playoff style, which was exactly what Byrne is getting at. We don't want the ball. We're going to play on the counter. We're going to play off of you. Look, the Red Bulls are a team that doesn't necessarily like to have much possession here. And I'll give you a hint at it here. We'll look back at the last couple of matches. So that match against Miami, 2-1 win for Miami. Red Bulls had 14 shots. Miami had 9. Red Bulls were the better team in general. Red Bulls had 56% of the possession. That is not typical for them. The Red Bulls, in terms of possession this season, are 22nd. That's actually a little bit higher than I would have thought, at 45.9%. That's their season average, 45.9. Atlanta's 56.3. They're third in the league in possession. That's diametrically opposite in terms of the approach. So Miami had success giving Red Bulls the ball and saying, here, what are you going to do with it? Orlando, the previous match, and Orlando won 3-1 in that one. Orlando had 53% of the ball, but you look at kind of where the goals came in that one. Goal in the middle of the first half, Daryl Dike. then a goal in the 50th minute that Red Bulls answered back very quickly through Florian Valot in the 54th. But Orlando was in control of that game typically. Now, the two wins for Red Bulls that preceded these two losses, both were 4-1 wins. The Montreal win, Montreal had a red card, but it was very late. It didn't affect the outcome here. Red Bulls, let's see, they fell behind actually first in the 4th minute, but they answered back quickly. Tom Barlow in the 14th, Barlow again in the 35th, then 2 goals in 2 minutes in the second half, Daniel Royer and Kaku. You look at the numbers there from a possession standpoint, Montreal with 62% of it, Atlanta with 38%. The Red Bulls win over Miami. Miami with 65% of the possession, Red Bulls with 35%. So the 2 games that Red Bulls last won, 38% of the possession, 35%. It is a strategy. Is it a strategy Atlanta wants to employ? Wants to? No. Could they see it as the best route to success here? I think in limited moments. I don't think they will completely concede possession. We've seen under Stephen Glass, I wouldn't say pragmatic, but we've seen, I think, a team that's willing to do some different things to get results. I think Atlanta will pick their moments here. I think you look back at the match against Orlando on Wednesday, and Atlanta played a little bit differently than they did in the previous 3 matches, something that we've talked about on the show this week. So you look back at Dallas, Chicago, DC for Atlanta. Each game they created 19 shot-creating actions. Each game they had 17, 18 tackles and interceptions combined. Each game they pressed a lot. There were a lot of pressures is the better way to put it. Not so much just the press in terms of a typical way, but pressures. 52 successful ones, 56 successful ones, 47 successful ones. Against Orlando, it was different. They picked their moments. Some of that's down to fatigue. 36 successful pressures, only 136 attempts. That was about 20 or so less than the other matches. 26 tackles and interceptions, which is far more. Only 6 created passes, or 6 created chances. 25 passes into the final third. That was less than the previous 2 matches that had 35 and 36. 39 progressive passes as passes forward over 10 yards. It was 47 and 51 in the 2 matches before that. Atlanta's going to have to pick their spots to manage their workload here. Red Bulls are too, but the biggest difference is Red Bulls were able, not successfully because they lost, but they were able to rotate their lineup in the last match on Wednesday. Atlanta didn't too much. Will they tomorrow? Well, we know Miles Robinson is out. Yellow card suspension, yellow card accumulation suspension. What other changes could we see, and how do they fix that issue? I could see Franco Escobar sliding inside. I could see Fernando Meza coming back into the lineup. If Escobar slides inside, that would mean Brooks Lennon would drop to right back, typically. That would open up a spot for Jurgen Damm or Jake Mulroney, depending on what Damm can give you here. It could open up a spot for Marcelino Moreno, and that's going to be a question that we'll talk about here in a bit. Does he start in this? I want to see how they solve that. No matter how they solve it, even if they rotate, if Eric Remedi comes back into the team, if you get a surprising start, like a Tyler Wolff, like a Lawrence Wyke, you get something like that, I think you're still going to have to manage the workload here. Jeff Larentowicz, can he go another 90? Oh, that's a lot. He's fit. He's really fit. He didn't look like he was feeling it on Wednesday. But can you do that? I think you're going to have to find moments to rest in the match, and that's going to be the key here. It's going to be fascinating to see, and I really want to see how they handle it. I want to see what Red Bulls do because both teams are kind of in the same spot in that they are teams that have bigger expectations than where they are. I think Atlanta has bigger expectations than Red Bulls, but both are expecting to be further up the table in the Eastern Conference. Both of them know how big of a game this is. This is one of those 6-pointers with 2 teams near each other in the table. You want to get out of that play-in round. You want to eliminate a round of play in the postseason. You don't want to have to do a 7 versus 10 or an 8 versus 9 with everything on the line. You'd like to be in the top 6 and avoid that. You got to start stacking up results. For Atlanta, they got to start finding more goals and more chances consistently. For Red Bulls, they've got to find some consistency, period. because, I mean, you're talking about a team that is very up and down. That's not a recipe for success. How each team handles this stack of games and how they handle the workload tomorrow, I think, is going to go a long way to defining who comes out of there happier than the other. I don't know if either one's going to be happy with a draw. Red Bulls probably would be happier with a draw. Atlanta wants the full 3 here. They need the full 3. They need to be better in the attacking half to get there. We'll get more into that as we go. You guys throw questions in on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. You can also throw them on email, soccerdownhere@gmail.com if you want to do that. And you can throw them into the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere. Barco, ? From Happiest of Joes. Well, Stephen Glass talked about that on 92.9 The Game this morning with John Fricke and Hugh Douglas. And he said that Barco was not going to be available. Didn't train today, so he is not going to be available for the match tomorrow. There's still the hope that he will be available Wednesday of next week, or the game after that, or the game after that. Carlos Bocanegra spoke to the media on Thursday at the Marcelino Moreno introduction, and, I mean, he made it clear that honestly, he just reiterated what Stephen Glass has said for the last 2-3 post-match media availabilities. Barco has not been able to train consistently. He's trained, he's had a setback, he's had to back off of full training the next time. When you can't train consistently, you can't play. If you're worried about an injury, even if it's to the point of just not feeling right with a prized young asset like Ezequiel Barco, you're not going to risk that. It's frustrating. It's annoying. You wish that you don't wish that he was more injured, so he's not medically cleared to play. You wish that he was not feeling any discomfort when he trains, because then you could play him and not worry about more injury. But that's where it stands, and I don't think anything has changed in the way the club has communicated this. The biggest change is the way that just injuries are talked about at the league level, period. You don't have the probable, questionable grades of injury right now. It is medically cleared to play, medically not cleared to play. That's it. And he is medically cleared because he's training. But he's not playing because he's not 100%. In the old school way, it would be probably questionable is where he would be listed day to day. That's questionable to me. You don't have that right now. You can't say that right now in terms of releasing injury information. And I think some of that's down to COVID-19. This is not an Atlanta thing. This is a league-wide thing. You can look at media reports league-wide. You can look at other reporters talking about how teams are saying this. It is you're cleared to play or you're not cleared to play. He's cleared, but he's not playing because he's not 100%. And they're not going to risk further injury with him. So that's the Barco question. That's the Barco answer. That's what I have it for you anyway. Shiva listened to me on the John Chuckery show. I always love catching up with Chuckery. He's a trip. He didn't rib me about my hatred for The Undertaker this time, which is not true. It's a vicious lie and rumor. I just rated him lower than some other pro wrestlers from the WWE. That's all. It's not anything personal. I'm not starting a fight with The Undertaker. Come on, y'all crazy? Love talking with Chuckery, though, because he is not a longtime soccer guy, but I think he gets it in a sports context. And I love the questions that he brings to the table. And he asked about Stephen Glass and the job he's doing, and what does he have to do? Where does he stand in terms of being the long-term manager? And I'll tell you all the same thing I told Chuckery is it's not the plan, it's not the intent, but the way this season is, and more importantly, the way this year is he's got time to state his case. Normally you might not have that. He's got that. Because it's not easy to bring somebody in straight away. I mean, look at the Red Bulls. They just hired somebody, and he might not be here for 4 to 6 weeks. So, I mean, if it's the guy they wanted, then fine. It doesn't really matter. But you don't need to rush a hire right now because you're not going to get them in here very quickly. And I have no idea what kind of a hiring process you're going through in an Atlanta United sense because you're not leaning on the Red Bull soccer organization like New York did here. So I don't know what that looks like, but right now, Stephen Glass has got the team. And I think Stephen Glass has made changes to this team, and the team is playing better. They're getting clean sheets. They're eliminating the mistakes that were killing them earlier. And he's doing it with a kind of a mixed bag of players. He's doing it without the big creative forces in this group, or have been in this group this year anyway. That's impressive. I do not think that is the plan long term, but the longer he gets and the more he does, the conversation can change. No matter what, I think Steven is showing his quality as a manager that I've seen with Atlanta United too, because that job is different than wins and losses. The development of individuals has been really impressive at Atlanta United too over the last season. And George Campbell and Lawrence Wyke are the two that I'll always point to, because neither one was expected to be with the MLS squad this year. And them being there is down to what Steven Glass and his staff did for them. And it's not just Steven. It's Henry, it's Rob Valentino. These guys work incredibly hard. And I think the players are starting to feed off of the way he works now. You're starting to see a different attitude with the team. It's exciting to see. And I think that's Glassy kind of rubbing off on them. And it's changing the group. It's changing the group, and it's changing the way that they defend, I think, more than anything. They're far more aggressive than they were before. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. Let's see. So Abby asks, as I get caught up, because I've been very long-winded so far, and sorry for that. Abby says, so thoughts that Barco not playing and Marcelino playing, do you think starting or subbing in? And what was Glassy said something is planned for Marcelino? I think Glass, and I didn't hear the exact quote. I had other stuff today as we were getting ready for the TV broadcast tomorrow, because I'll be filling in for Dan Gargan on Fox Sports South. So I didn't hear the exact quote yet. I think the intent of the whatever was said was that they're planning to use him tomorrow. I don't know in what way. I don't know if that's to start or off the bench. I would not be shocked if he starts. He is a player who can step right into a team and do well. He's a very talented player. He's a hard-working player. He's going to find his way into the game. Is it going to be perfectly in sync with his teammates that he hasn't trained with yet? No, there's no way it can be. But he is a smart player. He is an experienced player. He has seen a lot in his career. There's nothing that's going to scare him about tomorrow. So if you need him, you can lean on him. I think he's a guy that you are going to enjoy as a player wearing the Atlanta United kit. He's the kind of player that it seems like the 17s really respond to. Hard worker, talent, speed, quickness. He's going to be a good fit. And we won't see the best of him straight away. That's just impossible. But he is fit, and that's the important thing. It's not Jurgen Damm and Kubo Torres' situation where they were not training before they arrived in Atlanta. He has been training for a month plus before he got to Atlanta. So he's at a much different level of fitness. He's just not sharp. He's going to have to knock the rust off as he plays. That's the only thing I got. Shiva says, so if Glassy's the first manager to beat the New York Red Bulls, maybe we should keep him. That's going to be a feather in the cap. That's for sure. That's absolutely for sure. Burn says, does CONMEBOL have a disco? The elbow to or through Miguel Almiron. Whew. It's sarcasm font. Burn says, I don't think it was more than a regular yellow in South American qualifiers. South American yellow cards are a little bit different bar if you haven't been watching these qualifiers. And look, they're on pay-per-view. It's not ideal. I had to comment a couple times where people have yelled at us for sharing that Fanatis has the qualifiers. Fanatis didn't buy the rights to these qualifiers and then put them behind a paywall. They were purchased by somebody who I think was trying to sell them to a different network or sell them to a network, and the numbers didn't match up. So they put it behind a pay-per-view paywall. Fanatis became a distributor of the pay-per-view. They're very limited in what they could do price-wise. They can't sell it for less than the price. But they did package it if you wanted to get two games. I got the Argentina pack, so of course, duh, and watched the game last night. But you get two games, you get a discount, and you get 3 months of the Fanatis service. But people were yelling at us for saying, oh, well, look, you're They're putting it behind pay-per-view. They shouldn't have bought these rights. Well, they didn't buy them. They're just a distributor of them right now. It's not ideal, but these games are amazing. The Argentina game was probably the most boring game of the batch. It's physical. It's intense. The bar for cards, the way referees call games, completely different. Completely different. But that's why a player like Marcelino Moreno coming in, that's why South American players coming to MLS, it's not too physical for them. I don't know where that thought comes from. Go watch. Go subscribe or go follow a Twitter account that's one of my favorites, Mejores Patadas. It's best fouls. And they throw all kinds of other stuff in there each week. There's a bunch of Argentine accounts like that, like best goals, and then they get into some crazy categories like best agonizing goals, and just crazy stuff. But Mejores Patadas, they show these fouls that there's quite a few of them that are not red card fouls in South American leagues or South American matches, and man, they would be borderline assault in Major League Soccer. So the one to Almiron last night, I'm sure you've seen it make the rounds. Whew. Some of it's the angle, maybe he didn't completely throw the forearm into the mouth of Miguel Almiron. Maybe it's the angle where he's just turning into him, but Miguel goes flying, and it could have been a red, that's for sure. Christopher Abel, which current MLS player is the most similar to Marcelino Moreno? Is there an Atlanta comparison? If you're a defender on an opposing team, what would be the biggest reason you wouldn't want to have to defend against him? I'll go backwards. So the last question, he was one of the best dribblers in the Argentine Superliga last season. That's big. That's a league that loves its dribblers. That's a league that celebrates the gambetta. That's kind of not just a generic dribble, but like a slaloming dribble. That is something that is cherished in the Argentine game. And Marcelino Moreno has been called gambetta at times. That gives you a sense of kind of his game. I'm going to pull this up really quickly so I'm giving you proper information from the last season in the Superliga. So the reason why you don't want to defend against him, one, he was the third highest rated player in the Superliga last season, according to Who Scored, and that's based off stats. That's not based off people voting in a poll. Dribbles, successful dribbles in a match. He led the league by 3/4 of a dribble. He had 4.1 successful dribbles per match in the Argentine Superliga last season. I'll even take that to per 90 minutes just to see if it makes a dramatic effect. So, I'll get rid of the guys who didn't play very much to get on this list. I think he went up a little bit more with that. Yeah, 4.3 per 90 played. By far the most. Similar player in MLS on that aspect of his game is Reynoso from Boca Juniors, who didn't play nearly as many minutes as Marcelino Moreno. Marcelino played more, so he led the league in the dribbles. But Reynoso, the amount of dribbles per 90, comparable. Marcelino gives you far more defensively than Reynoso, though. And that's the biggest difference, is he does this. He attacks defenders. He's great in the 1v1. He wins the dribble. He can go to goal. He can create for others. But he'll defend. He'll give you the defensive side of the game, which is vital. And it's something that has been consistent for him when you look at his historic numbers in the Superliga. The goals and the attacking play has really come in the last year at Lanús, where he played as a little bit more of an attacking 8 as opposed to a winger or a 10. We'll see how he plays into a role here. But when he dropped just a little bit deeper in the midfield, he had more success. He had more room in front of him. He could see the field a little bit more. He could take off on these dribbling runs. But for a player with that kind of attacking quality, to be consistently averaging almost 2 tackles per game, to be consistently averaging almost an interception per game, committing a foul per game. I mean, he's getting stuck in on tackles. To be able to do that as well, that's a special package. And, I mean, the Atlanta comparison, look, it's something that everybody's afraid of, and I understand why, because it was something that I think was unfair to Pity Martinez. But Marcelino Moreno is a Miguel Almiron kind of player. Pity was never that. He just wore the same number. Marcelino is. They're different because they're different players. Marcelino, for me, is not as fast as Miguel. I think Miguel was probably a better defensive player than Marcelino. I think Marcelino is a better attacking player than Miguel was. Miguel, when he got here, go back and read things about the 2017 season early on. Read some of the reporting at the time. He was not necessarily comfortable going forward. The Houston game was the breakout for him. He had goals in the Minnesota game in the snow as well, but there were questions after that, like, where's the attacking output? Because he wasn't a guy who scored a bunch at Lanús. He wasn't. Neither was Marcelino. They're similar in that regard. So that's a fair comparison. Current MLS player mentioned Reynoso. In terms of the complete package, man, I'm trying to think of one, and I don't know if there is. For another Atlanta touchstone, there is some Nagbe in him for sure. I don't think Nagbe went 1v1 as much as Marcelino did, but there's elements of that total package of a game. Marcelino's probably not quite as clean in tight spaces as Nagbe. Marcelino's got more speed, I think, more just natural speed, more natural quickness. But there's some similarities in that. That's what I got, Christopher. I'm really excited to see how he blends into this team. I think he's a player who makes guys around him better, and that's something this team needs right now. So Shiva says, I don't think we know how to play without the ball, do we? Lately we do. This is a team that has pressed without the ball. They've pressed when they've lost the ball. Now, can they just press in general, or can they sit back and counter? You're not going to have a lot of time to work on it. That's why I don't think they'll do it a whole lot. I don't think that'll be the main game plan. But where they can take their time and maybe even slow the game down at times, that's going to serve them well. They've got to see how the Red Bulls come out. If the Red Bulls come out with a ton of energy, you can rope-a-dope a little bit. You can draw them in. I think one thing Atlanta will do more here than they have done against the Red Bulls in the past is play long, because it's something that we've seen this team do more and more this season, especially in these last 3-4 games. Look for the ball over the top. If Marcelino's on the field, if Mulroney's on the field, if Dom's on the field, if Gallagher's on the field, all of those are guys who can get in behind, especially New York's outside backs. Adam John is putting himself in positions to get in behind a little bit. He also gives you the ability to knock the ball down to a Moreno or to a Hindman or to a Remedi. So you've got some options. I think you'll do that at times. Maybe not so much play completely without the ball, but look to go long. Look to skip the lines a little bit. Burns says, I think it might work to let Red Bulls have the ball. Atlanta has been weak as ever playing out of the back this year. You don't want Red Bulls pressure against Atlanta's current midfield, which is very bad playing out of it. We went round and round and round on it. I think it's been certain individuals, and the Eric Remedi Chicago one is one that comes to mind for me as one of the last times that you really looked bad playing with pressure on you, and that wasn't even that strong. That was a pretty bad giveaway. I don't think it's quite as bad as Burned has. You do have to be careful at any time you're going to invite pressure, and with a team that's very good at it, you have to be very careful with it. I do think they're looking to go long more than they have, and I think that'll be something that they do here. They'll look for those diagonals into the corners, because Red Bulls will want to get their outside backs forward. These are not the same outside backs as they've had in the past. Kamar Lawrence is gone. Michael Murillo's gone. Kyle Duncan's good on the right side, but he's young. The left side's been a mess. Jason Pondant has not really worked out. He struggled at times. Patrick Seegers played early in the season, and he really struggled. The left side is where you can really make some hay. If you're Atlanta United attacking down, you're right. That feels like the play in this match. I think that's where you're looking for opportunities. And if that's Franco Escobar, Brooks Lennon, if that's Brooks Lennon and Jake Mulroney, if that's Brooks Lennon and John Gallagher, if that's Brooks Lennon and Jurgen Damm, if it's Moreno drifting over there at times, if it's Hindman drifting over there at times, that's where Atlanta can have success, in my opinion. Attacking down your right side, Red Bull's left. That's where I feel like their weakness is. Joe asked about Struber. Well, we're not going to see him anytime soon, but just quickly on him, he's a player who played for Red Bull Salzburg before they were Red Bull Salzburg. He then coached in their academy, their youth teams, all the way up to U19. Then he left. I think there's been a little bit of revisionist history about his time at Barnsley. They would have been relegated if Wigan hadn't fallen apart financially. They weren't because of that. Now, they did have to get a result after they knew Wigan was going to have a point deduction, but that's kind of changing the narrative a little bit. We'll see what he can do here. But he is a Red Bull guy, at least from coaching experience. So they're not going to change the style. He's somebody that I would assume that the organization is comfortable with. He's somebody who has youth experience, so you would expect him to lean on young players and develop young players better. And you go back to what Red Bull has said about young player development, that they don't feel like there's anybody in New York that is ready to make the jump to Leipzig anytime soon. That's a problem. Right now it's New York needs to get guys to Salzburg. They need Salzburg to not have to go to Philadelphia to go get Brendan Aronson. They need to get it from their own club. But that hasn't really happened yet. I don't know if that's something they felt like Chris Armas was not doing, if that's something he wasn't strong in, if it's something that just wasn't getting enough focus. I don't know. Struber, you would think, is somebody who is going to fit that need for them. We'll just have to wait and see, and when he gets there, how things change. Let's see. Yes, I got left on a high school football Friday, Turner Kirby. And I think road trip / working trip for Kelly as well. So you're stuck with me by myself as I ramble on. I apologize. As I try to catch up on here, Burned filling in the gaps on Struber, academy coach. I thought he had the U19s as well. At least I saw that, Burned. It might not be correct, but I know that was listed. I think it was on his transfer marked. I'll go back and double check. They at least had him down there. He might not have been the primary. And then Byrne nails it. He went to Liefering, which is like their USL team, essentially, like their B team. I was a little surprised by it because when the name came up, Byrne, we talked about it on the show. When that rumor started, it's kind of like the Austrian people who follow the Red Bull soccer organization didn't expect this. So it's kind of like, huh? Because they spent money to get him out of his contract at Barnsley. Millions, reportedly. They think highly of him to do that. Okay. We'll see. I think it's down to the youth development. That's the only thing I can really see. Turner asked about the Rapids playing tomorrow. That game has already been canceled. The Rapids have a lot of problems. They rescheduled the first 2 games that were postponed. They have 2 games to reschedule, and they do not have dates to schedule them in. You can't make it difficult for other teams because of the Rapids problems. I think they're going to have to go down as forfeits. But then the question is going to be, well, why are they rescheduling 2 but not forfeiting those, and teams have to play those games and not get the 3 points and not get the rest, while the last 2 teams that were supposed to play them do get the points and do get the rest, which is a valid question. So I don't know how MLS handles it, but there's no way they can make these games up now. There's no way. It's too disruptive to the schedule. There's no way. There's no open dates. So I don't know. I don't know how they handle it. And it's a lot of staff. Some players, but mostly staff. And, it's kind of the same thing that we talked about when the issues happened with Nashville and Dallas in the ahead of the MLS's back tournament. Where's the story on this? Where's the reporting on this? Because something has gone wrong. This hasn't happened with any other team. I can't think of any team in the world that's had this with staff like this. So what happened? Did people just get sloppy with protocols? Did people, let their guard down? Is it something else? I have no idea. But something went wrong because it hasn't happened with any other team in the league, and it hasn't happened with staff anywhere in the world that I know of. So who screwed up? What's the punishment going to be? Because they shouldn't be able to put other teams in a bind with making up these games on a Tuesday or a Monday or playing on 48 hours rest or whatever. That's not fair to the teams that didn't do anything wrong. So I don't know. I don't know how that gets handled, but I'm a little surprised that we have not heard anything about it. Because we were hearing things about the Miami Marlins. We were hearing things about the St. Louis Cardinals on the MLB side. We heard things about Notre Dame with their issue. Why haven't we heard anything about this? I don't know. Something's got to give on that. It's a very strange problem. Abby says, with some twos coming up, instead of bringing back Carlton and Kunga, do you think those two may be traded? I don't know if there's a definite here about any twos coming up yet. If there is, I've missed it. But it was said that Carlton and Kunga would not be coming back into the team this year. Carlton's season is done in USL. I don't know if this has anything to do with contractual situations with the loans. I don't know. But Carlton did have some kind of pointed comments in an interview with The Athletic in the last month. He did a podcast before that I didn't think was too big of a deal, but the quotes from The Athletic were not the best to say if you want to have a future with a club with some of the things that were said. I was a little surprised by it. And I don't know how everything went down. I mean, it's not an excuse, but I was surprised because the times that I've interacted with Andrew when we've done interviews with him for radio, a few different times actually, he's pretty savvy. I mean, he knows how to present himself with the media. He's done a good job of that. This seemed out of character in that regard, and I was taken aback by it. I don't know what his future is here in Atlanta. He had a good season for Indy. Not, a best 11 season in USL Championship, but a good season. He played well. Was it good enough to change the narrative here? I don't know if it was. I don't know what his contract situation is. I don't know if there's an option on his contract. I would assume that there is, that the club will have to make a decision on. I don't know. I don't know what the future is, to be perfectly honest. Kunga didn't play a ton for Phoenix. Now, Phoenix is a really strong team, and they had a lot of really strong veteran players in his position. That was why that loan was a little surprising to me. They're still playing. They're in the postseason, so he's still got work to do with Phoenix. But I don't know if he breaks in over some of the wide players here in Atlanta. Lagos is a great kid. He's got the right attitude. He is a hard worker. He's trying to get better at his game all the time. He's coaching kids. I'm rooting big time for Lagos. I've known him since he was, probably 12 or 13. Probably younger than that, to be honest. And he's always been a great player for his age, but he's always been somebody who was not arrogant about it. And he always wanted to make the players around him better. I always noticed that about him and always appreciated it. So I hope that he has success wherever that is for him. I'm not sure if he's an MLS-level winger. I think he has the 1v1 ability to be really, really close, but I don't know if he has the complete game to break through. But he's still young. He's just got to play. That's the biggest thing for guys that age. They got to play. I think the Phoenix loan didn't work out like they hoped it would for him, and like he probably hoped it would. So wherever he goes next year, if it's as an Atlanta player on loan or if it's on his own and he gets to pick where he goes, he's got to go somewhere where he plays to round out his game. And then we'll see, I think, what he can fully turn into. Burns says, do you think Atlanta United learned their lesson that it's problematic to sign Argentine number 10s for MLS? Compatibility, injury situation due to heavy fouling in MLS. So they're back to signing flying 8s like Marcelino. No, I think it's too early for that. I don't think we have enough evidence to say that's the case. I don't know if Pitty's necessarily a true Argentine number 10, to be honest. Pitty's kind of Pitty. He's a special guy and a special player and doesn't really have as much of a defined position. I think Marcelino became available, first off. I don't think Lanús wanted to sell him, to be perfectly honest. I think they had to. I know they didn't want to sell him for less than the release clause, but again, they had to. I think when he became available, they pounced. And I would assume they have a good relationship with Lanús because of how much money they made them on Miguel Almiron, whether it's the initial transfer and the sell-on clause. So, I don't know if when Lanús had to sell, if Atlanta was the first call or not, but I would assume that Marcelino became available. You had the opening. and he was a fit. I don't know if there's enough evidence to say that you're not going to sign other Argentine number 10s. The Argentine number 10 is kind of a dying breed anyway, because, I mean, even Juan Ramon Riquelme was called the last number 10. You've had more since, but it's not even a traditional thing there now. The central midfielders who are playing in 10 roles are more like a Marcelino than Riquelme or Ortega or of that ilk. There's just not as many of them anymore. So we'll see. I think Marcelino is that Atlanta kind of player, though, in general, like I said before, just about the total game he brings to the table. I think he checked all the boxes. I think his attitude probably won a lot of people over as well, and just the fact that you have a track record with Lanús. And MLS has a track record with Lanús. It's not just Miguel Almiron. It's Diego Valeri. It's Sebastian Blanco. Lanús has sent players to MLS and to the United States, and they've done really well. So that probably helped a lot, too. Let's see. Turner asking who will sub in for me on radio. It's going to be Mike Solo. Mike's going to do it solo. I'm going to jump in on the full-time report after we finish on TV. Look, some of this is hard right now because, we're not able to do everything normally, so it's hard to get together with somebody new, that you haven't worked with. We haven't had anybody else do radio before. In my role anyway, it hasn't happened. So it's not easy to work with somebody you haven't worked with. I've worked with Kevin back in 2018, but also on the Elfsborg friendly. So that side worked out, but there wasn't somebody who had filled in for me on radio before. So there wasn't a call up to be made. And I know, and I saw it on Twitter, people asking about Jess. And that's the plan going forward, is we want to get those relationships built and get that kind of situation built. But it's hard right now with restricted access in general. Some of this is down to COVID as well, and just bringing different faces in and getting people together to prepare and stuff like that. So this is something that we hope to do in the future, but we weren't able to do it on kind of short notice here to get everything done. So it's going to be Mike Solo. He won't have an usher from Columbus filling in for me like what happened in that game in 2018, which was kind of crazy to listen to when I went back to listen to a little bit of it. That won't happen, but I'll be over on radio for the full-time report. So I will be talking to you guys on TV and then hopping over to the radio side. Let's see here as we go through. Shiva, it's funny. Mike said this morning, too, about Shiva says the refs better behave because there's no Jason to calm down Mike. I feel like I'm the one who yells at the refs more. At least that's what everybody says. So I got to not do it on the TV side because it's a different vibe. It's a different feel on the TV side. It goes out on ESPN Plus. I don't know if we're the ESPN Plus game that gets fed to the national or not tomorrow, but it draws a different kind of audience. So there's a different feel. I feel like I'm the one who's got to be careful here. But Mike said the same thing this morning, so I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Turner, I will not pull a Kevin Harlan. I'm calling both games. I can't pull that one off. Kevin Harlan is one of the best sports announcers, period. I would love to be anywhere near Kevin Harlan as a broadcaster. He's amazing. He's one of the all-time best. D. Graham says, I think we go with the 888 midfield. I mean, a lot of teams do, to be honest, where it's very fluid with who drops as the 6. It kind of rotates. Who moves forward as a 10. It kind of rotates. It wouldn't be crazy. It's just you have to be in sync. You have to have good communication because somebody has to drop and help as a 6, sometimes 2. Somebody has to go forward and be a playmaker, sometimes 2 of them. So it can be done. It's something that takes a lot of time to build, and it's very risky. So don't think it'll quite get to that degree. But you like players who can fulfill different roles for sure. Burns says, I will always remember Gazan punting 20 straight times at Connor Lade in the playoff game, and Escobar Gressel taking it away from Lade a lot of these times, hopefully to be repeated tomorrow. Absolutely. Go to that side all day long. And even if you get to the point where Adam John drifts out wide to the right and becomes a wide target forward at times, cool, do it. Do it. It's something the Twos did late in the season with Jackson Conway drifting out to one side a lot, even when Mackie Jobe wasn't in and Philip Goodwin would kind of become the 9. It's absolutely a strategy. I would not be shocked to see Adam John kind of drift over to the right side and try to get him 1v1 with Siegrist or with Pendant, depending on who it is. And Brad and Escobar and Walks or Meza and Lorenowitz all look to play long to him. No problem with that at all. No problem with that. Shiva, so Miami is going to have 2 Higuains. They are. According to Stephen Goff, and I don't know if this has been officially announced as of yet. Double checking to see. Stephen Goff reported earlier that Federico Higuain was going to be traded by DC United to Miami, and that was by request. He wanted to play with his younger brother, who he is, I don't think, ever played with on a professional level, which is really cool. I mean, I like it. I'm a little surprised DC would do it, but I mean, it's not like DC really is going to have anything change this year if Federico Higuain is there or not. He's not playing a ton. I don't know how much he's really got to give. He kind of replaces Lee Win in that late game playmaker kind of substitution. That's what he turns into for them. D. Graham says Kunga needs to make the transition further back on the pitch. In terms of his positioning as a winger or in terms of his position as a player? Because I don't think he's strong enough defensively to turn into an outside back, as you see some wingers do. I think he does need to be more aware defensively, and that's something that during his last games with Atlanta United too, I felt like was starting to come through, and I know it's something that Scott Donnelly worked with him a lot on in 2018. In Memphis, I felt like it was coming through. I haven't seen him a ton with Phoenix this season, so I don't know if it's consistent enough. But that was always the issue, was you needed more of a complete game from him. Burned says, I actually like Carlton. I think there's some talent there. Maybe not the right fit for the hyper-athletic MLS, but in the end, he scored 1 goal in a full USL season. I know he had some assists, and he did. He created a number of chances. That's just not enough for an attacking mid underneath the striker or forward to warrant a renewed deal here. I'd like to see him... I have worried about his athleticism. I think he's got the skill and the talent. He's special in his technical ability. But, yeah, he's not the fastest. He's a throwback in a lot of ways. We just talked about the last number 10. He's kind of that. You know, could he be in that kind of old-school system where you play 2 or even 3 central midfielders behind him and just he's in a total free role to spray passes? Yeah, but nobody does that anymore. There's teams where he could fit. I mean, he's, for me, like, no question, he can be a star in the USL Championship. He can play in Major League Soccer. Can he play 90 minutes a week in Major League Soccer? I don't think he can for every team. I think he's going to have to find the right fit. He's going to have to find a manager who trusts him. And that's hard because he hasn't built up that trust yet. He doesn't have enough of a show reel to do that. It might take a signing with a good USL Championship team that is going to play him in a role that suits him to get that opportunity down the road. I think he's very talented. I'm with Burned on that. I think he's very, very talented. And I do think he's grown up a good bit. Although the interview kind of surprised me a bit, and maybe I was wrong. But I want to see what happens to him. I don't want to see players like that miss out because we need more creative players like that. We need more problem solvers on the field like that. But you got to have the whole game. You got to have the mentality, and it hasn't completely been there for him yet. Turner says home team feed gets the ESPN Plus, if I remember correctly. Not always. Not always. Typically, I think that's the case, but it doesn't always happen. So I don't know what the science is behind it, but I think there's probably a decent chance that we're on ESPN Plus. I have not said what hat you'll see tomorrow. That is undecided as of yet. That is absolutely undecided as of yet. Still working on it. We'll figure this out. Rope says, how many teams have siblings playing together? I can think of the Charas. They are in Portland. I know there's been some in MLS, but I'm trying to think of others. And you had the Adu brothers, but I don't think they actually played together. They were separated by a few years, and I don't think they ever got the opportunity to play together. What else? In MLS, I can think of one with the Silverbacks, the Mendez brothers, the twins. Paulo and Pedro, I think, if I remember right. They played together. You had the twins at Manchester United, the outside backs, the Brazilian outside backs, Rafael. Oh, and who was the other one? He didn't play as much. Fabio? I might be wrong on that. The Beaslers, yep, not on the same team, but absolutely Badger. That is correct. Man, those are the ones that come to mind. Atlanta's had it with the Mendezes, though, at the NASL level with the Silverbacks. Turner says, UGA plays at 3:30, Atlanta United at 6, Clemson at 7:30. Going to need a couple of screens tomorrow night. Yeah, you are. I'm not going to get to watch Georgia hopefully beat Tennessee, so I'll have to trash talk Chris Ashley after the fact. That's what happens this time of year. I mean, look, like right now with so much soccer going on, not even just MLS, not even previously Atlanta United 2 with USL, but just, these South American qualifiers, Nations League, all the leagues happening around the world, the Argentine League getting ready to start by the end of the month. I'm just watching so much soccer. I'm not watching much of even the Braves. I haven't watched much of the NBA Finals, which was something I was looking forward to. I'm just engrossed with all of the different soccer going on. It's been a lot of fun to have all of it back, and I hope it stays back. Ropes, good point on the sibling part of the Mewises. And I know Sam and Christy have been on the same team before, not just national team. They've been in the same club before. I think the Boston Breakers, they played together. And Christy Mewis right now is killing it with Houston. She's come back from injuries, and she's killing it. She got called back up to the U.S. women's national team, which is awesome. Burns says, I don't think Carlton will move or wants to move to Europe, but there are a few leagues that might fit him better than MLS. Serie A, La Liga, Portugal. Not the Bundesliga. Definitely not the Bundesliga. Portugal's a really good call. And you're starting to see Portuguese clubs, and not always like the big ones either, go after American players. That would be a good fit for him. Portugal, and I mean, Boa Vista is a club that we're seeing now. I don't know if that would be an option for him. But a club at that level, as a showcase kind of situation for him, yeah, that's a really good call, Bernd. I like that. Turner, I have not heard about the Atlanta Gladiators opting out of the season this year. Minor league sports in general, without fans in the building, is very, very difficult to do. I was pleasantly surprised at what USL has been able to put together this year. And they've been able to get fans back in the buildings. That's helped. That's definitely helped. But I was surprised they were able to do what they did. And they haven't really had major issues. And their testing protocol, doing once a week, I was concerned about it. They've been able to make it work. They've had games get postponed. That has happened. Yes, I think that's inevitable right now. But like minor league baseball, minor league hockey, I don't know how you do it at the moment. I don't know where the financials work. There's no TV money to speak of. So I just don't know how it makes sense. 25% of the venue, there's no way that would cover the Gladiators' operating costs. There's just no way. Abby, I know the Braves right now have some time off. I'm just talking in general. Like, I haven't had a chance to watch as much of the Braves as I would like to because of everything going on, which is great. I love working. I love being involved in all this, so it is all good. But there's been so much good soccer going on lately that's where my head's been anyway. Any final questions from you guys? I'll take them now. Lineup-wise, and we'll talk about this a little bit more probably on the Power Hour in the morning at 10 o'clock. Lineup-wise, I would not be surprised to see Franco Escobar slide in as a center back and Lennon drop to a right back. That's something we've seen here lately. I don't know where things stand with Fernando Meza. I thought we would have seen him sooner than now. But it could be Meza and Escobar together at center back and give Walks time off. Walks can move over to right back if you want to keep Lennon at right wing. That's possible too. You have a lot of flexibility. Midfield, if Jeff can go, I think Jeff goes. I think Jeff is a starter whenever he is good enough to start right now in terms of his fitness. And he seems like he is bionic more so than Brooks Lennon. So if he's ready to go, he gets the call for me. Mo Adams was subbed out late in the match on Wednesday. He's played a lot of minutes here lately, and he hadn't played a lot before that. We'll see if that adds up for him. Moreno could start as one of those central midfielders. He could start out wide if you want to make it easier for him. We know Barco won't be there. We don't know about Jurgen Damm and how much more he can go. He hasn't gotten past 30 minutes yet since his return from the hamstring issue. Adam John should be okay. John Gallagher came off earlier in this one on Wednesday, so maybe that helps him be sharper for this one. We'll see. I would guess right now, if I had to say lineup tonight, Gazan in goal, Bello on the left. I think Meza comes back into it. I think it's Meza and Escobar as your center backs. I think it's Lennon at right back. I think it's Lorenowitz as the 6. I'll go ahead and break the glass on Marcelino Moreno. I think it's Moreno and Hindman as your 2 central midfielders. I think it's Gallagher and Mulraney who start out wide, and they can flip-flop. They could move side to side. I think it'll probably be like we've seen, inverted, with Gallagher on the left and Mulraney on the right. That could flip, and Adam John up top. That's where I'm feeling right now. That might change after I think more about it and after I get some sleep. We'll see. Final ones. Burns says, hockey seems to be complicated in terms of COVID. Yes, I think some of that's the mentality that maybe the American football's having as well, just the locker room stuff and the mentality of macho and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think there's some dumb decisions being made. Hockey's got that vibe too. I think team sports can be done. I think hockey can be done, but I think people have to do it correctly. And I think in most of these situations that we're seeing problems, it's because of individual decisions. And hockey and football seem to be two that have the we'll be fine, we're tough guys mentality, and that doesn't lend itself to being very careful with a highly contagious disease. It's not really the best matchup there. Badger says, when Jeff is done, I want him on a coaching staff, first team or 2s here. I'd love it. And Abby says, I was hoping Parkey would have stayed to coach. I think Parkey's actually, and we've talked to him a couple times with different things, I think he is thinking more about the coaching side, but I think he's also enjoying being retired, and he's enjoying spending time with the family. Will he get that pull to be a coach? I think Jeff's got it in his blood. If I remember right, Jeff's dad has been a coach for a long time. I think Jeff is the more natural fit to go straight into coaching. He just has that, I don't know, he has that mentality, he has that personality. I don't know if it'll be here. He's from California originally. Could he go back out to California and start coaching? It's possible. I'd like to see him move into the academy first, to be perfectly honest, Badger. I'd like to see him work with like U14s, U15s early on. I think that's a really important part of a coach's development, is to work with younger players first. It just serves you well. I think Tab Ramos has went down that road, and it's really served him well. So I'd like to see him come into the academy first. That's where I'd like to see it. Turner says the same thing about Parkey wanting to enjoy retirement. Jeff might be the same way. I mean, he just keeps going. It's been fascinating to see him these last couple of years. Like, even 2017, he wasn't a starter day one. He became a key player. 2018, same thing. Last year, same thing. This year, same thing. You just can't get rid of Jeff Lorenowitz. It's so important to have him on the field right now. And if he's ready to go, if he can even get you 60, let him start and play 60. Let him play till he needs to come off and get the best out of him. Get as much as you can. You don't have the luxury, because of where you are in the table, to say, well, we're going to rest guys here, or we're going to play these guys and be 75% of our best squad we could field right now because we play again on Wednesday. Stephen Glass has said this. It is as simple as, all right, what is my best 11 to win this game in front of me right now? And that's taking fitness into account. But what's the best team I have today? Okay, that's who's playing. Get to Wednesday, probably Tuesday night. What's the best team I have to win this game in front of me? Okay, that's who we're playing. That's what you have to do right now. You just don't have any other way to do it. And that's hard, and you don't have continuity, and you don't necessarily know day-to-day, game-to-game, but that's why I think all this work that Stephen Glass and his staff have put into building the overall mentality of the group has been so important, because you can see a Mo Adams come back into it and play really well. Hopefully, Eric Remedi, when he gets his opportunity, he does the same. You've seen Franco Escobar be transformed, and he's becoming a leader. You see the consistency of a Brooks Lennon, of a John Gallagher, of an Adam John, with their work rate, with their effort, what they're bringing to the field. You're seeing this team look and feel differently, and you're going to need that with everybody from, whoever you consider the best player on the field right now. Let's put Marcelino Moreno, Ezequiel Barco as the most talented players in this team because they're the designated players. Let's put them there for now. You need that kind of effort from them when they can play, when they're healthy, when they're able, all the way down to George Campbell, Lawrence White, Tyler Wolff. If they're called upon and you need them, they have to bring it the same way. That's where you're at right now. That's it. So you just got to deal. You just have to deal with that. And if somebody else has to come up, if Jeff gets you into the 60th minute and starts to feel it, if that means Eric Remedi gets the call, he's got to deliver right now. That's where you're at. You got guys playing for their futures. You got this team playing for playoff positioning. People are going to get that call. That's the nature of 2020. That's the nature of the season. And people have to deliver. That's just where we are at this point. So, for those of you who won't be able to join us in the morning, you can listen to the Power Hour when we're done. It'll go up probably about 11 o'clock on your podcatchers. You can also listen to it on demand on soccerdownhere.net. You can watch it on demand here on twitch.tv/soccerdownhere. That's 10 to 11 tomorrow. Then we'll have the AT&T countdown to kickoff at around 5 o'clock on Atlanta United social media channels. Mike and I will go through the lineup. We'll talk about kind of some storylines coming into the match. 5:30, Mike will be on 92.9 The Game and the radio.com app. I'll be on with Kevin Egan and Jillian Sakovits on Fox Sports South. Kickoff will be 6:08. Should be 08. It is a local broadcast. No long extended pregame shows. So 6:08 kick is what you can expect. Final whistle sometime after 8 o'clock. We'll have the 30-minute postgame show on Fox Sports South, and then full-time report will be going for an hour. I will be on both postgame shows because it's a crazy day. And then I'll do Southern Fried Soccer with Doug. Yes, I am wearing a hat. I am not telling you the rest of my wardrobe. It's not that big of a deal. But yes, I am wearing a hat because Egan yelled at me in 2018 when we were talking about all of this the first time I was going to do it. And he's like, you have to wear a hat. You have to wear a hat. There's no question. You have to wear a hat. That's your trademark. You have to wear a hat. So I have to wear a hat. So I'm wearing a hat. And that's what we're doing. So the rest of it, you'll just have to watch and see. That's how it's going to be. I'm excited to work with Kevin and Jillian, talk to both of them a bunch today as we were getting everything ready together. And I've worked with them before on a game with Fox Sports South. I've also worked with them in different things and interviewed them and had them on shows. And they make it so easy. Jillian makes it so easy as a host of the pre and post game. Those are the elements that are more stressful because they're different from radio. They're the most different from radio. She makes it simple. Kevin's awesome as a play-by-play commentator. Makes it very easy for the color commentator. Like there's plenty to do, and the last game we did against Elfsborg was a lot of fun because, one, and this game won't be like that, it was, we were calling it from a monitor, so it was a little hard to tell everything that was going on in the second half when both teams went deep into their benches, so it became a little bit of just a conversation between the two of us about the game in front of us. This one is going to have a lot of intensity to it. You hear how excited Kevin can get. You've heard me get excited before, so I think this will be a fun one for us to call. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just really happy that the team, because they're involved in that decision, Fox Sports South and Eric Kendall, the producer, and everybody at Fox Sports South gave the okay as well. The team wanted me there, and they had the belief in it, and Kevin and Jillian have made it so easy to be part of it. So I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about that some more tomorrow morning, but more than anything, we'll get ready for Atlanta and Red Bulls and the day around MLS tomorrow because it's going to be a big one. So thanks, y'all. I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out. Always fun talking soccer with you guys. Thanks for making it so interactive and asking so many questions. I try to answer as much of them as possible. But I don't get to do what I do. I don't get these opportunities to call games on TV without you guys as part of all this. So thank you. I really appreciate it. We'll be back in the morning. Y'all get some rest. I need to as well. And we'll be back for the Power Hour at 10 o'clock. Y'all have a good night. Mucha plata, y'all.